The first time Tamara saw her, she was standing at the edge of the field, alone, in the same faded uniform the rest of them wore, but somehow untouched by it. Her shoes were spotless, her braids too neat, her stare too long. Tamara had been returning from morning duty when their eyes met. The new girl smiled like she knew her, like they'd already met, but they hadn't. No one had seen her arrive. No bags. No parent. No transfer announcement at assembly. Only later did the principal introduce her. Chioma Obi, from a sister school up north, but no one could say what school, or why she transferred mid-term, or how she already knew the layout of the dorms. She even knew which bunk was Tamara's, without asking. That night, Tamara lay in bed, eyes wide open beneath her scarf. Something about Chioma's smile wouldn't leave her mind. It wasn't unfriendly, it was knowing. The last time someone looked at her like that, it had come from a mirror. Tamara didn't speak to Chioma for 2 days, but Chioma watched her. Always from a distance, never directly, yet never hidden. During prep, she sat 2 rows behind her. During lunch, she always entered the dining hall a few seconds after Tamara. During light out, Tamara would hear a soft creak 2 bunks over, as if someone had turned just in time to watch her fall asleep. It was harmless. It was silent. And it was terrifying. On the 3rd day, Chioma approached her by the tap behind the dorm. It was early. Too early for anyone else to be around. Tamara was rinsing her uniform, knuckles raw from scrubbing. She felt Chioma before she saw her, like a presence pressing through the back of her neck. Chioma squatted beside her and asked casually, "Did it stop glowing?" Tamara froze. Her heart climbed straight into her throat. She didn't turn. She didn't breathe. Chioma dipped her hands into Tamara's soapy water, swirled it once, and smiled. "Or does it still wake you up at 3 a.m? Tamara didn't respond. She couldn't. The way Chioma spoke, so casually, like asking for extra Gary at the dining hall, made it worse. The glow, the time, no one had ever said it out loud, not even Ezine, not even Adaora. And this girl, this stranger, had whispered it like a joke. Tamara stood, wringing her hands dry, her back turned. "How do you know that?" Chioma didn't stand. She just played with the bubbles in the bucket. "Because it used to talk to my sister too," she said softly. Tamara turned sharply. "Your sister?" Chioma finally looked up. Her face was still, too still. "She didn't survive it. But I will." The words floated between them like smoke. Tamara felt her knees weaken. Not because of fear, but recognition. Whatever it was that had lived under her wig wasn't done yet. And Chioma hadn't come to find peace. She had come to finish something. Tamara skipped breakfast and went straight to the library. She hadn't stepped foot in there since last term, since the vault. The building still smelled like dust and mildew, with posters of forgotten alumni peeling off the walls. She made her way to the back, to the archive shelf most students ignored. And there she pulled down the slim, handwritten black book that had once belonged to Madame Grace. The one she wasn't supposed to see. The one with the name. The dead names. Girls who had once attended the school and disappeared, quietly, with no notice. No letters sent home, no official expulsion, just gone. She flicked quickly, scanning each yellowed page. 1996, 2003, 2011, then, right there, 2016. Obi and Kechi. Dorm 2B. Vanished after prolonged symptoms. Last seen mumbling about the calling. I think Tamara's chest tightened. Chioma wasn't lying. She had a sister, and she had seen the thing Tamara had only barely escaped. Tamara closed the book with shaking hands. Chioma didn't just know too much. She had come back to reclaim something. Or someone. That night, Tamara couldn't sleep. Her bunk felt colder than usual, her thoughts heavier. She replayed the name again and again. Nkechi Obi. The book didn't say she died, just vanished. After prolonged symptoms, Tamara had symptoms. The mark, the mirror, the reflection that didn't always blink. And now Chioma. At midnight she left her bed and tiptoed out of the dormitory, past the creaky gate, past the generator shack, and toward the east wing. The abandoned block, the one no one was allowed to enter, the one they used to call Dorm 2B. The door was boarded up, but a loose plank near the bottom let her squeeze through. Inside, it smelled like mold and memory. The beds were still there, dusty and rusted. Curtains hung limp in the still air. But one bunk had no dust. One mattress had recent fingerprints. And carved into the wooden headboard, barely visible in the darkness, she whispered to me from the mirror, "No." Tamara stumbled backward from the headboard, heart racing. The air in the abandoned dorm shifted, just slightly, like something had exhaled. She backed toward the door, eyes still locked on the carving. Then, Nkechi Obi had slept here, dreamed here, vanished here. Tamara turned quickly, shoving herself through the broken panel and out into the night. The campus was silent, too silent for midnight. Not even the usual crickets, not even wind. As she crept back toward her dorm, a flicker caught her eye. In the hallway mirror next to the bathrooms, her reflection stood still. But Tamara hadn't stopped walking. The reflection turned slowly to face her, inside the mirror, eyes dark and swollen, hair loose and wild. Not hers. Not fully. It was her. But wrong. Tamara stepped forward until her breath fogged the glass, and the reflection mouthed a word she couldn't hear. Then it smiled with someone else's teeth. Tamara didn't sleep. She sat on her bunk until morning, scarf still tied tight, eyes locked on the mirror across the room. Her reflection had returned to normal, or maybe it had simply chosen not to be seen again. Either way, Tamara knew now it hadn't died in the vault. It had moved. By lunch, whispers spread across the school again. Girls said Chioma was speaking in her sleep. One swore she heard her reciting numbers backward. Another claimed her nose bled while she was praying. Tamara found Chioma outside the chapel steps, sitting alone, sketching into a notebook. She stared at the page as Tamara approached. "You went to Dorm 2B, didn't you?" Chioma didn't look up. "You saw what she left behind." Tamara sat beside her. "What is it?" Chioma turned the notebook around. On the page was a crude drawing of the mirror, but in the reflection was not Tamara. It was a different girl. Eyes white, mouth wide, hair braided like Nkechi's. Tamara didn't ask how she knew, because somehow she'd already guessed. Tamara took the sketchbook from Chioma later that night and stared at the drawing for nearly an hour. The mirror, the reflection, the hair. It wasn't just a memory. It was a message. A warning, or maybe a map. Back in her bunk, she untied her scarf slowly. The mark was gone. Or so she'd told herself. But when she ran her fingers across the top of her scalp, she felt it. Faint, like scar tissue beneath the surface. Like something that had once been alive, but was now sleeping. She touched it lightly, and a vision surged behind her eyes. The vault. His slab. The moment her head hit the stone and the light exploded. But this time, she saw more. A figure behind the vault wall. Watching. Not trapped. Wait. Tamara gasped and sat upright. The mark hadn't been a curse. It had been a keyhole. And she had been the first to unlock it. Chioma wasn't the next host. She was the next door. Morning devotion felt colder than usual. The sky was grey, and the assembly ground buzzed with an uneasiness no one could name. Madam Grace led prayers, her voice thin over the microphone, while the girls yawned and shifted in line. Tamara stood rigid, eyes scanning the crowd. Chioma wasn't there. She left the line, ignoring the prefect's shout, and ran straight to Dorm 2B. The plank had been pulled completely off. Inside, the mattress was gone. The carvings on the headboard had been deepened, burned darker somehow, and new words were scribbled beneath the old ones with something red. She has a mirror now. She knows how to use it. Tamara turned, breath shallow. In the far corner of the room, barely lit by the broken window, was a round hand mirror. Sitting on the floor, facing upward, reflecting nothing. Tamara didn't touch the mirror. She couldn't. Just being near it made her scalp pulse. Not ache, not throb, pulse, like it had a rhythm of its own, one that didn't match her heartbeat. Back in her dorm, she stared into the small mirror tucked inside her locker. At first, she saw nothing new. Same scarf, same tired eyes. But when she tilted her head slightly under the flickering light, something moved beneath the skin. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't stress. It was shape. A subtle ripple beneath her scalp, stretching from her temple to her crown. She leaned closer and peeled the scarf back slowly. Then she saw it. Not a mark, not a scar. A ridge. A curved line of hardened skin, dark and smooth like chitin or bone. It curved with perfect symmetry down the center of her scalp, the exact shape of the creature she'd only seen in dreams. She stumbled back, gasping. It was back. Or worse, it had never left. Chioma cornered her during prep, just after lights out, in the hallway near the water tank. Most of the school was asleep, but Tamara hadn't slept in days. Not since the mirror, not since the ridge. You felt it, didn't you? Chioma asked, stepping out of the shadows. Tamara didn't answer. Chioma moved closer. It's waking up again. I can see it behind your eyes. Tamara backed up against the wall, hand tightening around the knot of her scarf. I don't want this, she said quietly. Chioma tilted her head. Yes, you do. You just don't remember why. Tamara's scalp pulsed sharply, her knees buckled and her hand flew to her head. But the pain wasn't random. It was a message. Not words. A feeling. Something inside her had reacted to Chioma's voice, as if recognizing it. Tamara looked up slowly. What are you? Chioma only smiled. I'm not the host. And the invitation? Tamara didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard it. A low hum beneath her skin. Not in her ears, but deeper, like her bones were vibrating, like the thing inside her was trying to tune her. At 2:14 a.m., she gave up trying to rest and sat upright in bed. All around her, the dorm was quiet, girls breathing, snoring, shifting. But Tamara didn't move. She was listening. The hum had rhythm. It rose and fell like a chant without words, and then it changed pitch, slightly. Not louder, just closer. It wasn't in her head anymore. It was coming from somewhere outside. She slid quietly from her bunk and crept to the window. Outside, near the staff quarters, a faint figure stood alone beneath the neem tree, unmoving, barely visible. Chioma. Her head tilted upward as if she were listening to the same hum. Tamara blinked. The figure vanished. But the sound remained. Inside her, like something waiting for permission. By morning, the hum hadn't stopped. It had faded into the background like a second heartbeat, one she didn't own. Tamara moved through the day in a blur, barely tasting her food, barely hearing her name when Adaora called her in class. Her vision sharpened at random moments. She could see the shimmer of chalk dust in the air. She could hear the flick of a girl's braid as it hit her desk. And every time she blinked, the hum jumped in her chest like it was syncing with her body. It wasn't just noise. It was syncing her to something else. She locked herself in the bathroom after prep and took off the scarf completely. The ridge had widened. Now it curved behind her ears like a crown, dark and smooth and wrong. It didn't hurt. It pulsed. Alive. She touched it gently and the hume vanished, like flipping a switch. Silence. And then her reflection blinked, without her. Only once. But it was enough. Tamara didn't remember walking back to her bunk. One moment she was staring at her reflection, the next she was seated on her mattress, hands folded in her lap. Everyone else was asleep. Her body was still, but her mind wasn't. She closed her eyes, and it happened again. Another vision, only this time it was clearer. She stood in a room lined with mirrors, dozens of them, all the same size, none of them showing her reflection. Instead, they held flickering images, other girls, some with the mark, some screaming, one with her hands pressed to her skull as blood poured through her fingers. In the center stood a girl with braids facing away. Nkechi. Tamara knew it without question. Nkechi turned around slowly, her eyes glowing white, her mouth opening to speak. But the words came from inside Tamara's own throat. She jolted awake with a cry caught in her mouth. Adaora stirred beside her. "You okay?" Tamara didn't answer, because something inside her was still whispering words she didn't understand. But they felt like instructions, and she was starting to understand. They weren't just for her. Tamara waited for Chioma after devotion. The chapel steps were still wet with early dew, and the air was thick with heat despite the early hour. Chioma stood facing the rising sun, her eyes closed, breathing slowly, as if drawing energy from the light. Tamara stepped beside her without speaking. "It's not just a parasite, is it?" Chioma opened her eyes but didn't turn. "No, it's memory. It's design." Tamara swallowed hard. "It chose me." Chiome's voice was almost a whisper. "Because you were born into it, like Nkechi, like others. It follows bloodlines." Tamara's heart dropped. "What bloodline?" Chioma finally turned and met her gaze. "Yours. There's a reason the mark fit you. It was never random. It was waiting." Tamara took a step back, breath shallow. "My mother." Chioma shook her head. "She doesn't know. They never do. That's how it survives, quietly, until it's time to wake up again. And now, it's waking in you." Something changed after that morning. The other girls started keeping their distance. Adaora didn't say anything, but Tamara noticed the shift. Her bunkmates avoided eye contact. Laughter around her stopped too quickly. Conversations died when she entered the room, and at night, her bed felt colder. Like the mattress itself knew she didn't belong in it anymore. Then it got worse. During prep, Bunmi, who once mocked her loudly, dropped her pen and reached under Tamara's desk to grab it. The moment her hand brushed Tamara's foot, she screamed. Not out of pain, but fear. Tamara jerked back as Bunmi scrambled away, eyes wide, mouth trembling. "I saw something. Under your skin?" She wasn't making it up. Tamara felt it too. A ripple beneath her ankle, like a jolt of heat shifting just beneath the surface of her leg. It moved. It wasn't just in her head anymore. It was testing her edges. Tamara didn't go to dinner. She sat on the floor of the bathroom, scarf in her lap, watching her reflection blur under the flickering light. The ridge on her scalp had spread slightly, just enough to meet behind her ears. The texture was changing too. Less like skin, more like something armoured. But the worst part wasn't what she saw. It was what she felt when Bunmi screamed earlier. Tamara hadn't touched her. Not intentionally, but the parasite had. It reacted, it reached. And for one terrifying moment, Tamara hadn't been afraid. She'd felt powerful. The thought made her sick. The silence was broken by footsteps. She looked up. Chioma was standing at the doorway, holding something wrapped in cloth. She walked in, placed it on the floor, and unwrapped it. A hand mirror. Polished, uncracked, facing upward. "This isn't about fear," Chioma said softly. "It's about remembering who you are." Tamara stared at the glass. And this time, her reflection didn't blink at all. Tamara didn't look away from the mirror. She couldn't. The glass rippled faintly, like water reacting to sounds she couldn't hear. Her scalp tingled, a slow surge crawling up her spine and spreading behind her eyes. She blinked, but the reflection didn't. Instead, it opened its mouth. No sound. No breath. Just movement. The lips formed words she didn't say, but could feel. "You are the doorway. We remember your shape. We are ready to return." Tamara's hands trembled, her throat dry. She tried to speak, but her voice felt buried beneath layers of silence. Then something happened that froze her entirely. The reflection smiled, and it wasn't her smile. It was older, sharper, like something had worn her face before and never fully let go. Chioma stepped forward. "Can you hear it now?" Tamara turned slowly, tears in her eyes. "Yes, and I think it's trying to come through me." The next morning, Chioma was gone. No one had seen her leave, no bag was missing, her bunk was perfectly made, but on her pillow was a folded note, blank on the outside. Inside, just 4 words, written in tight red ink. "Dorm 2B, midnight. Don't come alone." Tamara stared at it, heart pounding. The school was already buzzing, students whispering about Chioma's disappearance, teachers muttering about her transfer. But Tamara knew better. She hadn't left. She had stepped aside. Tamara waited all day, counting the hours, the hum in her body now constant. When the clock hit 11:47 p.m., she slipped out of bed and quietly woke Ezine, who had been watching her more carefully than usual. "Come with me. Please." Ezine didn't ask why. She followed. They reached dorm 2B at 12:03. The door was open. Light spilled from the inside. Not white, not yellow. Red. It pulsed like breath. And somewhere deep inside, something moved. Not just one thing. They stepped inside slowly. The light from the corridor disappeared behind them like a door sealing shut. Dorm 2B wasn't dusty anymore. The beds were gone. The walls no longer peeled. Everything had been scrubbed clean. Unnaturally clean. At the center of the room stood a full-length mirror. Cracked down the middle. In front of it, a girl. Not Chioma, but something wearing her shape. Her head was uncovered, and what should have been scalp was completely replaced. Layered black ridges shaped like petals, shifting gently as if breathing. Not a mark, not infection, a crown. Tamara gasped and took a step forward. The girl looked up. She didn't speak. She projected. "You were the first piece, the first memory, but the body requires more." Ezine clutched Tamara's arm. "What is this?" Tamara's voice was barely a whisper. "It's building itself back through us." The reflection in the mirror shifted again, and Tamara saw it. Not one entity, but many. A network of faces, eyes, mouths. Girls who had once vanished. They hadn't died. They'd been absorbed. Tamara stared at the mirror, her heart thudding in her chest. The faces behind the glass blinked slowly, some of them familiar. Too familiar. One of them had her dimples, another had her eyes. One even had her laugh. It echoed softly through the room, out of sync with everything else. They weren't visions. They were girls who had once been real. Girls who had once been her. Ezine turned to her in horror. "That's you. That's all of you." Tamara couldn't respond, because deep in her gut the parasite pulsed, and her knees buckled. She fell forward, palms hitting the ground as the hum grew louder, now deafening. The mirror glowed brighter. and from the girl in front of it, Chioma or whatever she had become, came a word not meant for human mouths, not a word at all. A command, and Tamara's body began to shift. The ridges beneath her scalp rippled outward, reaching across the back of her head. It wasn't choosing anymore. It was activating. Tamara's body trembled as the ridges expanded. They weren't just growing, they were unfolding, like wet paper peeling away from her skull. Her breath caught in her throat. Ezin reached out, screaming her name, but Tamara couldn't respond. The parasite wasn't killing her. It was remaking her. Inside the mirror, the reflection rippled and shifted. Her own image morphing into a new version of herself. Eyes darker, shoulders straighter. A faint grin on lips she wasn't moving. "It's beautiful," whispered Chioma from behind. Tamara clenched her fists, teeth gritted against the surge. Her thoughts were fading, her voice buried under layers of whispering memories not her own. But something deeper pushed back, a flicker of her. She screamed, not in fear but rage, and slammed her palm against the ground. The glow faltered. The hum cracked. And for a split second, the reflection blinked in confusion. Tamara gasped, sucking in air like she'd been drowning. Izini dropped to her knees beside her. "You fought it. You're still here." Tamara looked up slowly. "Barely. But it's not done. And now, it knows I'm trying to resist." Tamara didn't remember standing, but she was on her feet, body trembling, vision swimming. The mirror pulsed once, and the air shifted, thick with pressure, like the room had turned into a lung, inhaling deeply, preparing to exhale something dangerous. The reflection stepped forward inside the glass. It didn't look like her anymore. It looked like a future version, one where the parasite had completely taken over. No emotion, no fear, just perfect calm, ridges glowing across the scalp like ceremonial armor, a creature reborn in her skin. Then it moved. The mirror cracked again, spiderweb lines stretching across the surface. Red light burst through the gaps, and Tamara screamed as pain seared through her spine. Her arms twisted backward against her will, the parasite retaliating, punishing her resistance. "Stop!" Ezin shouted, trying to grab her, but the air around Tamara was burning, humming louder than any human voice. And then, suddenly, it stopped. The hume collapsed into silence. The mirror shattered completely. Tamara collapsed, body smoking slightly at the edges. From the shattered glass, the reflection was gone. But the air still watched, and the parasite was no longer just in her head. It had begun to learn from her emotions, and now it felt anger. Tamara lay still on the floor, lungs dragging air like gravel. Ezin hovered beside her, too afraid to touch. The mirror was gone, nothing left but shards and a humming silence thick enough to choke on. Tamara sat up slowly, her scalp still glowing faintly beneath the skin, not pulsing now. Not attacking. It wanted her alive. Ezin touched her shoulder. "We need to tell someone. Madam Grace, the principal, anyone." Tamara shook her head. "No one would understand. Not unless they've heard it, felt it." She stood, knees wobbling, and looked down at the largest shard of glass. Her reflection had returned, but it wasn't alone. Just over her shoulder, something else shimmered in the glass. A face. Watching. The mirror wasn't a portal. It had been a mouth, and it had taken in her rage, her fear, her voice, and now it spoke with it. A sudden gust of wind slammed the dorm door open. The lights went out, and a whisper, soft but powerful, brushed Tamara's ear. "You are no longer the seed. You are the soil." The next morning, Tamara didn't wear her scarf. She walked into morning assembly bareheaded, eyes forward, the ridged pattern on her scalp glowing faintly beneath her skin like ink lit from inside. The students parted without speaking. Some looked away, Others stared, transfixed. But no one dared come close. Madame Grace stood at the podium, lips trembling as she watched her. Tamara didn't blink, didn't flinch. She just walked to the front and stopped beneath the flag. And smiled. Because it was over now. Not the curse. The question. Everyone wanted to know what she had hidden under the wig. They thought it was a mark, or a wound, or a curse passed down. But what she had hidden was blueprint. She had been the host, yes, but also the prototype, a map, a route, and now the seed had bloomed. All around her, students began shifting, subtle at first, a twitch, a blink out of sync, a flicker under the skin. Tamara turned toward them, eyes glowing with something ancient. It was never just her. It had only started with her. Now it was ready. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to hit the like button, comment your favorite part, and subscribe for more amazing stories. Your support helps us keep bringing you new adventures every week. Thanks for watching.